when I think of like a Ruger,
Yeah.
right? Like I think of the 1022.
Absolutely.
Like that's the first thing
Yeah.
I think of. What's crazy is, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, like, is it fair to say this is like the father of the 1022?
Yeah, yep. They shoot very, very well. It's handy, it's light. Actually, the recoil is not terrible.
What is up, everybody? Mark on the mic. Jim to my right. I repeat, Jim to my right. And my good friend, Mr. Ryan Muckenhern, across from us. Gentlemen, there's a few things that I truly love. Number one, hanging out with you guys. Number two, hunting deer. And number three, when I see a rifle and I instantly go, man, I really want to shoot a deer with that thing. And that thing that we're talking about today is the Ruger Model 44. I mean, this is a pistol caliber carbine.
OG. Well, not the OG.
It's not the OG, but it's, I mean, this
It's
thing.
worth saying OG about, though.
It is.
I thought that's actually what you're... I wasn't thinking of the acronym. I just thought, OG.
This thing.
OH, comma, GEE.
Yeah.
Oh, like OG. Yeah. This thing is cool. This dates back to 1961. 1961 to 1985, they were making these bad boys.
This variant.
This
yeah.
variant. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get to some of the others. Lightweight, handy, fast, and in the good old 44 mag. What's not to like?
Nothing is not to like. I hope that this production serves as we'll call it a call to action, if you will.
Yeah.
That the fine people at the Sturm Ruger company resurrect this incredible system or its variants.
Bring it back.
You know what's
They're
really
pretty good at listening.
Yeah, you know what's really hot right now? Lever guns.
Oh, I think, okay, I'm not going to say this blows lever guns out of the water, but I don't. When I saw this, I'd say I get more excited about this than a lever gun.
Things I will concede to. This is my list of demands. Bring back the Ruger 44 carbine or the Ruger 96 44, which is a Ruger 44
So,
carbine
That's the lever gun.
with a
version.
lever.
Yeah.
So wait, why is it an or thing for you? I think it should be an and.
He doesn't want to ask too much
Yeah.
all at once.
I'm not going to. I'll take either
If
one.
Ruger said, listen, pal, that tooling's going to cost us a fortune. You only get one.
Let me make a case for the lever gun.
You can try.
Suppressors are also in vogue. They've never been more attainable. The good people at Hornady are really good at making suppressor adjacent ammunition. Wouldn't it be nice to have a high mass for caliber, sub X load, 44 mag, to run through your lever action 44 mag that is not this radical design that we're seeing? We've seen a lot of lever guns with Piccadilly rails on them.
Problem.
The 9644 was such a clean machine.
It's clean.
Bring it
You're
back.
right. It's clean.
Bring it back.
Yeah. I see. I thought you were getting at the quietness of a
That
of a
is, it all ties. Yes.
Yeah.
My brain drifted.
We've also talked about, the quietness of a suppressor, how important it really is.
Yeah, correct.
Anyway,
Yeah.
this is pretty sweet.
I don't touch the stuff.
Not yet, Mark.
Yeah,
But
don't we have,
I don't think we got 10 likes yet.
really?
Yeah. I think we're missing a couple likes or something.
How many will it take, Mark? Name the number.
Name your price. Let's go back to this Model 44. Aptly named.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty cool. Originally, they were calling it the Deer Stalker. Had the Deer Stalker moniker, and then the folks at Ithaca took exception to that. I think they may have already had that, and so they put the kibosh on it. That's what the internet said.
Did a deer slayer?
Huh?
I don't know either.
Maybe it was close enough, perhaps.
Sure.
I've heard the term confusingly similar before.
Okay. All right. Very
I
well.
will say it's unfortunate that they would have had to change the name because 44 carbine, while not, I guess, uninteresting, is less interesting and less targeted at a certain, perhaps, demographics feelings that would be conjured up when you say the name, like Deer Stalker versus 44 carbine. 44 carbine, when I heard about it, I didn't actually know this was a thing. When I heard that we were going to do this podcast, I was picturing something that It was just a bigger version of what people would jump out of planes with in World War II.
Oh, gotcha. Gotcha.
Sure. Which kind of.
I mean, it's not
They had that too.
Tommy gun.
No. There was a couple variants of this, similar things.
Really?
One of them was called the 9944, which basically was a Mini 14/Mini 30/M1 carbine in 44 Magnum.
Oh,
Yeah.
I like that.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty neat.
Oh, well, anyway, okay.
Yeah.
18.5-inch barrel.
Yep.
Again, lightweight, short, handy. 1 in 38 twist, Ryan, is what I heard on that. Is that right?
I've never audited the twist rate of these systems, but that's about in the pocket for that bullet diameter and mass of days of yore.
Speaking of bullet weight, 180s to 300s. Is that what I'm hearing?
Modern 44s. Well, back in the day, like a custom cast, you could get a big chunky in there. 240 is a pretty common bullet weight for 44 mag.
What are those Hornadies that
These
we have
here
on the
lever
table?
evolutions are a 2 1/4.
Okay.
The FTX. Boy, this is a spicy bullet. I shoot these out of my BFR. Got a little crossfire red dot on there. Been thinking about changing that to a Defender. Crossfire's been working really good, but 200 yards with these on the steel plate, that's a riot.
What's I guess I have a 44 mag myself. I never paid attention to the twist rate. 1 in 38 just seems like, it seems very slow.
Yeah.
What would my modern Marlin 44 mag
I don't know.
recently produced?
I would guess between a 1 in 16 and a 1 in 28.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely didn't even pay attention to that.
Yeah.
But those are pretty big bullet weights up, that you could
Yeah.
potentially be shooting through a slow twist rate. But I suppose it's all, it's
Well,
not-
they're large diameter. So like
Right.
for extraordinary contrast, my 54 caliber patch and ball gun is a 1 in 66 twist. Yes. And that's a 232.5 grain lead round ball at
Okay.
0.54 inches in diameter. Well, it's actually slightly under that, but
I've never looked at the twist rate on my 54 cal muzzleloader.
probably a 48.
So it seems so slow.
bigger, fatter projectile just doesn't need to get spun as quick.
Yeah, there's a relationship between diameter, mass, and length.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
It is.
Ryan, we're talking a little bit about, I thought you mentioned, maybe you didn't mention the scope mounts. Maybe I was just thinking about the scope mounts.
So what I was telling you is I'm in a crisis trying to find a scope mount for this particular gun, this individual that we have in front of us.
So like this specific model 44.
I need a mount for this gun because the user wants to put a Viper HD 2 to 10 on it, or Viper HS 2.5 to 10 on it.
But this would be any of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What's proving to be problematic there?
Just finding one. So they're on eBay in various grades of condition. I need to look just a little bit harder at some of the other rocks and crevices that I often find things hidden under on the internet. I'd like to get a pick rail so that I can run 30 millimeter rings so I can mount that optic at an appropriate height. I can find new old stock of some of the Williams mounts with the post style or turn in rings, all of which are 1 inch. So that's a bit of a doozy. Initially, we were hoping that the new Viper shotgun dot would key into this.
I was wondering that.
Yeah, so if you remove the integral rear sight, the PEEP, and I see these two screws here, they're actually holding in under the receiver, and this was something I completely forgot about when the gun was initially handed to me. I was like, oh yeah, they've got 4 holes there, it's fine. That actually holds in a steel reinforcing plate that is critical to the function and life cycle of the firearm. So it's a bit of a debacle, but I think we're going to be able to find a mount. I'm sure of that.
So when you do put a mount on there,
Yeah.
do those forward screws go through the mount and then do double duty and secure that piece that you're talking about, or you do
No.
not actually use those?
You omit those, and they actually tie into the barrel. So there's 2 holes drilled and tapped into the barrel right here.
Oh.
Yeah. So 2 of them are going to fasten up here, and the mount is a very clever step to accommodate that difference in bridge height. and then it comes up and ties into the rear 2 mounts here. So that's all well and good.
Dare I toss around the term, it's almost teetering on scout-like territory.
Nearly.
Once the rail starts touching the barrel.
Yeah, anything goes, man. It just gets weird. Yeah.
I mean, this is a gun of utility, though.
Oh, definitely.
I mean,
yeah.
from deer stalking in fairly close quarters to defensive applications.
Or not.
There are tales of yore of this being a companion gun to certain law enforcement agencies that were issuing the .44 Magnum as a primary sidearm.
Why would you
Yeah,
not?
why not?
Right. And so
It's awesome.
You think about kind of a departure from this, but let's go back to like Bonnie and Clyde. Some Model 8s perhaps were used. Some Winchester self-loaders perhaps were used in the Great Shootout. We know for sure there was Thompsons. We know there were Colt monitors and BARs and things like this utilized. But this format of rifle in that capacity would be exceptional for, say, stopping a vehicle or needing a powerful man stopper when at the time, the only other things like the AR was very recently on scene.
Sure.
And this would have been like 1960s.
Oh.
Yeah, this would have been like
I thought you were talking about Bonnie and Clyde stuff.
No. I'm sorry. I kind of jumped around there. Yeah, very, very. Yeah. M1 carbines were in use, but a lot of the long arm stuff was either a bolt gun or a shotgun. And, obvious reasons bolt guns weren't ideal. This would be a fantastic option for an entry tool. Limited round capacity in there, but you could get 4 off pretty darn quick.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the one thing. So tube magazine.
Yep.
Essentially 4+1. And Jim, can you show that to Ryan, show that to the folks at home?
Convenient way of showing it. Well, I guess let's see. We got our bolt lock to the rear. Now, is this like
just like a 1022?
1022.
Yep.
So, when's the last time I messed with my 1022?
No,
Wait,
excuse
no,
me.
it's
It's
not
slightly
like a
different.
1022,
You're gonna push up on the. There you go.
Found it.
Yep.
Oh, this old thing.
But how awesome is that? That like you've got 21 seconds of familiarity with the system. You've identified that it is basically a giant 1022, and you figured out how it all works with just a push of a button.
What am I missing here on the?
So that same button that you push to press that, the lifter will lift, and you can then feed into the just like a shotgun.
Huh. Yeah.
I mean, I love that about the shunk, shunk,
Yeah,
shunk.
yeah. And so underneath that handguard is concealing a small, moderate or modest capacity magazine tube, not unlike a shotgun. So we have arms familiarity with shotguns of all types back then. So whether it was an 1897 or a Browning Auto 5 or an 870 or whatever, Winchester Model 12, like we all load those from the bottom. We know how that works. And then just like auto shotguns that had a side eject system, like all of them, it all played the same. It just fired a 44 mag. Has the same aesthetic as the Ruger 1022. And again, at a quick glance, if you walked by it, unless you were privy to what this was, from this side of the gun, it is indistinguishable from a 1022. It's a little more proud in the stock, but
I mean, is it fair to say? I mean, okay, when I think of like a Ruger, right? Like I think of the 1022.
Absolutely.
Like that's the first thing I think of. What's crazy is, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, like, is it fair to say this is like the father of the 1022?
Yep. Fair enough.
It came after this.
Yeah.
Very neat. I'm not up to snuff on my 1022 history, but that is fascinating. This rear sight here, the peep sight, it is not simply bolted onto the top of the receiver. You can see that its base goes far down, even beyond into the stock. Is that part of the strengthening component to the action for?
I wouldn't say that so much as it was like that was the design element. Like it's an incorporation of actually an aftermarket weapon sight into the receiver itself. So it's like inletted into the receiver. And like generally speaking, if you were to take I'll just pick on a gun from the time. Let's say you had an early model 700 and you wanted to put a Williams or a Lyman or a Pacific peep sight on it, or a Redfield. There'd be a provision on the side of the receiver to accept it via 2 holes. And then oftentimes, depending on the sight geometry, you'd have to inlet your stock slightly to allow the slider to move in and out.
Oh, it's only sliding down on the side of it. It's not going
Correct.
all, okay.
Yeah, it's hidden. It's recessed behind all of that. And so that is integral to it. The sight's elevation control is in the back here. You loosen that up, the sight will slide up and down. And then your windage control is up here. There are 2 large screws that will allow you to slide.
I got to say, that's done in a really pretty,
very tasteful,
svelte fashion.
Yep.
Yeah, see, I thought this whole thing went down. Now I see that it's kind of almost like a diving board. And then I thought it was almost, it was hearkening back to like a high wall or something where that flips up. I thought that was part of but that's really
very cool.
It's a really pretty way of doing it.
Yep.
Doesn't stand out, doesn't stick out at all.
And I think that ultimately might have been some of its demise too, because it was an expensive operation to have that on the gun, to have that incorporated in such a fashion. And then also at that time, like telescopic weapon sights started to become popular. So, your user would say like, okay, what's the spirit of this arm? And it's like close, tight handiwork in the woods. Now all of a sudden you can get a Weaver K15 or a K2 or a K3 or K4. And you're like, oh, shoot, I got to modify the way this gun kind of is configured. Maybe I don't even want to run the irons. I just want to run an optic. And then things got a little goofy with the scope mounting. It worked, right? Like it was a thing. It certainly was fine.
Yeah, because because this is so integral, I suppose even if you put a scope on it, you're probably going to have the scope go over it instead of removing it all together.
Yep.
Because if you remove it all together, you got, I guess the screw is doing something. You got whatever's behind that.
Yep. It's just a notch that's cut out. Like it doesn't like open or expose the inside of the receiver. It's really clever. Yeah.
I know you've been fighting to put an optic on this thing.
Yeah.
And I know we sell optics, but I look at this and I'm like, man, I really want to shoot that with the sights on it.
I agree. The gentleman who owns it, he definitely wants an optic on it, though.
And I get that.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yep.
I love the things myself.
Right. Yeah. But it is a super cool gun. And I think they're hard to come by. So like
and they get a pretty fair price.
Absolutely. And when they're in good condition, they command a significant premium.
I was looking online. I think I've seen probably like on average like 9 something.
Yeah,
and then
9 to 1,200.
Yeah, exactly.
Some really cherry ones are going for the upper 1,000.
Really?
Cracking $1,500-$1,600. They're. I think a lot of times they were guns that were used. Like these were great hunting tools.
How do you not? It's so handy.
Yeah. And, you don't see a lot of cherry early first-year production 1022s out there either. Most of those things had task and purpose and were used accordingly. But I know a couple of people who, like, this was their hunting gun. And it was what they started with, and it was what they continued on with because it solved every problem that they ran into in the woods. I know somebody who hunted mule deer and western whitetail with one of these for the first couple of years of her career of western hunting.
I mean, you certainly could.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to, take these fantastically long shots that we can nowadays, but
she was a shooter that at the time when she started hunting the West, like she was okay to about 150 yards.
Perfect.
And so like this is what she had, and fantastic. It's as far as you can shoot it. It's all you need to shoot it. You don't need to go to a 708 or a 308 or whatever to squeeze out some sort of increased benefit and trajectory. And I think she was successful with it out there too. She was hunting like river bottom whitetails and mule deer in South Dakota. Did really well. Ultimately, or eventually, she ended up in a conventional centerfire bolt gun, but she used that for a long time. A buddy of mine who listens to this, Blaster, picked one of these things up from a song after he got back from the Middle East, and I still wish to alleviate you of your ownership.
You'd take that off his hands?
I would do that. Yeah.
So kind.
Blaster, if you're listening out there.
Yeah.
Cool nickname.
I was watching guys shoot these
or maybe
things
just
on.
It's a real name. I guess I shouldn't assume it's a
no,
nickname.
it's a nickname. I don't really know.
Oh, that's not his given name.
No, not his given name. I don't know how we assigned him the name, but Blaster it is. It's what he's in my phone.
With a name like Blaster, you'd think it would be fairly memorable how it. Or maybe it was just so many series of Blaster-like events that you were like,
with him,
hey, after.
for sure. Yes.
Got it.
Many of those.
Got it.
Yeah.
I may have mentioned this on the podcast before. For many years, I had Ryan in my phone with a cerertain moniker, and then
Which you can't mention on the podcast.
That's not. My apologies. I probably should have brought it up. This isn't even a 10 likes.
Yeah, you
thing.
kind of like dangling the.
Yeah, that's not very nice. Anyway, I was going hunting, and I think for some reason you knew where I was going to be. Like maybe we'd been to this spot before, and I'm like, my wife was like, "Where are you going to be?" I'm like, if I turn up missing, Ryan knows where I'm at. So I gave her Ryan's phone number. That's a dangerous move. And but I had to change his name in my phone.
Mark is still in my phone as Bark Mordman.
Yeah.
That's pretty tame.
And then I have the business filled out too is Mordman's Casting Agency. So whenever I get a text from it's Bark Mordman's Casting Agency.
Everybody that I work with, their name in my phone is like first name Work, and their last name is basically just Work. So,
Yeah.
Oh,
but
yeah,
you two
sure.
are early enough on in my phone that it's actually your full names.
No kidding, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I have you in my phone as James.
That's probably because that was my Microsoft Outlook name for a while.
Yeah. It just seemed. I like the formality of it.
It took me like 11 years of working here for my email to finally just come through to people's inboxes as Jimmy instead of James.
I still don't use it.
Yeah.
So anyway, the Ruger 44 carbine.
Well,
Hey, can I ask a question? We were kind of on the topic of it, and we glazed over it, but I was just curious, like, and not to pick on this owner or anything, putting a scope on an old gun,
Yeah.
like that's sort of set up around iron sights. But I know it kind of depends on the gun, and the reason I bring this up is because in my head, I was like, oh, it's so cool with the irons on, blah blah blah, which is a thing. But also, I'm like, let's say you actually want to use the cool old gun.
right.
And putting a scope on it makes it, now whatever you say, people shoot 1,000 yards. Yeah, okay, great. But you can shoot better, generally speaking, with an optic. And so it's like if you want to make old cool gun and you want to use it more and have more experiences with it and make it more usable for your application, where are you guys at on that?
I mean, you nailed it for me. It depends on where it sits in my hierarchy of usage. If this is my hunting rifle and this is the tool like that I'm going to take and it's deer season, I'm going deer hunting and this is the rifle I'm bringing, I'm putting an optic on it.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to get one. If it's more of a novelty thing, I like to shoot it. Maybe I'll take it out for a late season doe hunt and this is the rifle that I want to pick because then I would leave the irons on it.
Yeah.
Ryan?
It depends.
If you drive it every now and then, it doesn't need heated seats.
Yeah. It's like I can put an optic on my 1885. Nope. Won't do it.
Won't do it.
I could put an optic on. Thankfully, I can't on my 1895. I could on my 64. Won't do it. No. The reason this is getting a scope,
But those aren't your everyday drivers either, though.
I went 3 full hunting seasons without running a rifle scope.
Yeah, okay. You are also weird.
Yeah.
The whole reason this is getting an optic on it, though, is for exactly what you said. So this is going to a youngster who I believe there may have been a miss during hunting season. And so we are trying to remedy that with an optic on there.
Better vision.
Yeah, we're going to get more use out of this system because I believe the gun's been in the family for a while.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to get more use out of that system, get that youngster proficient with it, with an optic.
The seams
I don't
actually...
think...
Oh, go.
Oh, I was just going to say, I definitely don't think there should be optic shaming on old guns because it's like, would you rather see an old gun rot in a safe and not get used?
Right.
Or would you rather see it with an optic on it, but it's getting used still?
Yep. Yep.
That's...
I agree with that. speaking to the youth application,
Yeah.
this seems fantastic for it.
It is. Yep. It's handy. It's light. Actually, the recoil is not terrible.
I bet it wouldn't be.
I was watching, again, I guess grown male adults shoot it online, but it kind of looked like just like when you're shooting an auto-loading shotgun, just boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
Like it didn't look.
They don't have a terrible impulse. The bolt and recoil mechanism in there is very adept. They're quite pleasant to shoot.
Is it an optical illusion, or is the length of pole a little bit shorter too, or not?
I never measured it. I mean, it's a petite gun. I mean, it's
long. It looks longer than a 1022.
Yeah. I mean, I'm see. It's probably about a 12.
Is it average?
It's about 12 inches.
12 is average?
12 and
Classic 12er.
Classic 12. Yeah. Very cool guns. I really want to see them come back badly.
Should we talk about, so you mentioned the Model 96, Ryan.
Yeah.
Which is an evolution of this in a way. But in the year 2000,
yeah,
Y2K.
Thank God we made it.
I still have supplies from Y2K. It's good though.
I want to check the expiration dates on those.
We get the
They didn't put expiration dates on them. Let's be honest. The world was going to end.
The kind of a resurgence.
Yeah.
Definitely different in some ways. The Deerfield carbine.
Yep.
Pretty cool rifle.
Yeah.
I'd guess a couple major differences would be rotary magazine.
Yep.
Akin to what you would see in your 1022 these days.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some stuff in the bolt too. Yes.
Yeah, so it's it looks way more like a Mini 14 on performance enhancing drugs than it does a 1022 with an enlarged bolt. So they go to
so subtle.
Yeah, they go to an exposed rotary bolt, like that of the M14. They had that shroud over the operating rod. It's just a subtle
I did
push.
it once
Just
before.
pull it back. There you push. What have you done?
I don't know, Ryan.
But it carries a lot of the same dress up that the
That's just in. Never let
Mini
Jimmy touch
14
your gun.
has. So it's got the shroud over the op rod. It's got an exposed side bolt thing, and then a that detachable box magazine, which is basically an XL variant of the 1022, the very famous magazine.
Right.
A little bit different geometry, but same premise of function.
Sure.
Yep.
Ryan, tell your customer I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
But that only went to, we're talking 2000 to 2006. So again, pretty
Short-lived.
Pretty limited runtime there, which is unfortunate.
It is. At that point in time, it was like too weird to live, too rare to die. So folks weren't necessarily hot on that pistol caliber thing. There were a few out there in that timeline, but not a lot. Most of them had started to bleed toward the tactical application more so than the practical hunting application. So we had contemporaries like the High Point C9, the Colt 9mm carbine, the Beretta
CX4 Storm.
Yeah. And there wasn't a ton of other stuff out there. Like Marlin had discontinued the Camp 9, Camp 45. And I'm sure I'm missing a couple. Calicos were long gone, et cetera. And then so it wasn't cool anymore, I don't think. And then,
like you said, we'd kind of moved on. I mean,
yeah, a little
telescopic weapon sights are way more advanced now.
Yeah.
Like people aren't, they're not necessarily looking to limit their capability.
No, and nobody wanted a 150-yard deer hunting rifle.
Right. And it's easy for me. I'm like, oh man, I wish they didn't discontinue it. And I'm sure Ruger's like, well, then you should have bought one. And maybe if a lot more people bought one, we'd still make it.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes, that happens often.
And then the 96 that Mark had mentioned was...
Sorry, Jim, it's a 96.
Oh,
Obligatory.
Well placed.
So the 96 was kind of a family of Ruger guns that would have been a 22 LR, 22 WMR, 17 HMR, and then a 44.
Yep.
Which is pretty...
That's awesome.
Yeah, which is pretty exceedingly rare. So that just looks like basically a 1022 without the charge handle on the side and a lever installed.
Kind of a cute little lever, too.
Definitely. Same lines. Everything looks...
And I think the magazine is...
The same.
The same.
Yeah.
Maybe you mentioned that.
I didn't. No.
But it was hard for... I don't know why it's hard for me to pick. I don't know.
Yeah. Ruger had some start stops with a bolt gun contemporary as well called the 7744. There was also a 77357. But so they've had this very awesome fleshed out line of Magnum centerfire pistol cartridges in carbines since the 1960s. And then some start stops, some reintroductions of those. And like, I think now more than ever, it is so prime and ripe for re-release. When I'm looking look at what Henry's doing with lever guns. Look at what AR companies getting into the lever gun space are doing with lever guns.
Yeah.
And then look at what the craze of pistol caliber carbines is now. You can get 10 millimeter auto, you can get 45 auto, you can get 5.7 by 28. These are all on AR platforms. 22 LR, 9 millimeter, 40 Smith & Wesson, yada yada yada. Let's see this come back in this form. I can omit the integrated peep sight. That's fine. But just please bring it back.
Let it cook, as the kids say.
They do say that. I mean, you're right, Ryan, though. It's like there's this blending of genres as far as firearms go, as well as a big throwback trend.
Yeah.
You know, I think we should see this again.
Yeah,
I agree.
Let me ask a question. I don't actually necessarily think or even know if this is a good comparison, but I think it could come up in people's minds if they saw this and they weren't acutely aware of its past. And people seeing, let's say they came out of this 44 mag.
Yeah.
Right. With some of the new gun culture that's been interjected since this time, long since this time, some people might be like, why didn't you make it in 45? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like compare, and obviously there was the Ruger Camp 9 and 45. So like compare the 44 mag to the 45.
Yeah.
And why it's cooler.
So the 44 mag, I mean, just powerhouse in comparison, right? So 45 ACP has its time and its place, but it's nowhere near like the energy levels, the velocity levels, and the capability levels of the 44 Rem mag. And you know, it's hard for me, like where I get juxtaposed is I see people touting the tactical merits of a lever gun in 45-70. Part of my brain says, well, yeah, you can't deny that. A 300 grain, 325 grain bullet at 19 to 2100 feet per second is a Tyrannosaurus Rex coming out of the muzzle. Is that the best tactical solution? Well, I don't think so, but it's selling a lot of lever guns and people are going bananas over it. And I've seen more folks buy lever guns and lever guns come into the shop. I think like as an ancillary to that marketing campaign.
Yes.
I think it in 45 ACP would be a more tactical or more, I'm not going to say practical because a hunting application of 45 ACP is actually pretty limited. Can be done. No guys have done it. But 44 mag solves the hunting aspect of that handily. I think it can talk to a tactical aspect. I mean, Smith & Wesson, their Combat Magnum, which is a long-standing series in their wheel gun, that has been front and center now recently as like a really desirable wheel gun to have. The 329 PD, which is a gun that just is horrendous to shoot. People are still hot to trot on that thing because why not have like a 30-ounce 44 Magnum Scandium frame gun?
Let's go.
I think it has to be in 44 mag or 357 or both. Because it's just right.
Good. So there you go. Anybody who would be trying to request it in 45 or anything else, it would be a bad idea.
Yeah,
it should be in 44.
And Ruger had their pistol caliber magazine fed, or pistol magazine fed system, and it was great. It was fine. It was even cool looking for the time.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So I think it just has to be a 44.
I think that's its sweet spot.
Yeah.
For practicality.
Yeah. And while we're at it, you might as well make sure that the 7744/77357 is fortified. The 96 comes back. I can do without the other one, the Mini 14 derivative variant.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, this would be great. Give us a 96 for those who want the manual operation, and give us the bolt guns.
I feel like we think this is really cool.
Yeah. So
I
should
think
you.
there are a number of people who would also think that this is really cool.
I think
firearm. Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
I was going to say, just particularly going back to what Ryan was talking about earlier with this resurgence of lever guns and people wanting vintage things and throwback type stuff. And there's just a cool factor to this too.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the there's two or more directions that people are going that are very different.
Okay.
Especially when we talk about hunting. Because, you have people that are interested in sort of throwback stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
We're certainly interested in this. We also happen to be, because we're interested in many things, because we're enthusiasts. But then there's also the people who are interested in, like, hyper accuracy, like, distance. Like, they're reloading, looking for nodes, trying to get, like, single digit, all this super, super, super uber precision stuff. This is not that.
No.
And so I think if you're talking to somebody who maybe isn't a full-on, like, enthusiast, and they were trying to figure out which direction they should go, even if they're the kind of person who's going to be like, I'm going to hunt, I might get a shot at like 150 yards, maybe. I feel like it's way easier for the world these days to get them started down the road of like uber precision than it is to be like, no, this is perfectly adequate.
I agree with that. And I think to support that, like you see rifle manufacturers coming out with sub-MOA guarantees and ammunition companies touting, these or factory loading for like Wisconsin whitetails, super slippery bullets that really are, the original design intent was that long range shooter. That shooter will probably never encounter that kind of shot.
Right.
And I agree with that. And I think you do have that pool of entry enthusiasts that become captivated and intoxicated by the allure of that. And then you go up a tier, and once you have those things, and then you look for like this fun thing. And like classic examples, just to harken or call back to like the PCCs and the AR platforms and similar. Those aren't renowned for spectacular accuracy. Like you've got a Ruger 5.7 carbine.
Yeah.
It shoots goodish.
Yeah.
But you respect it for what it is. And I think that that maybe isn't a gun that somebody buys as like their first. And maybe that's a kind of a rotten example because it's a bit hyper specific. But like once you get into the pool and you enjoy firearms for what they are, not necessarily that you have an express need in a gun to do X, Y, or Z thing. And then you're like, oh, I'm looking for a practical hunting tool that's also fun and a bit eclectic. Then you get into your first lever gun.
I do. Yeah, I agree. I do just think there's something, it's happened in a number of areas. You look at things that are people's hobbies, so like I like cars, obviously, and guns, and these things that have had technology advance over the years. They've had enthusiasts and people who have enjoyed it for many years. And there's like a certain point we've come to where there is no going back, and you can't deny or ignore what is possible now versus what was. You can enjoy something like this because it's eclectic, it's unique, it's a challenge, it's whatever, it's perfectly adequate. But even if you're doing that, even if we went out and got this, there's always the thing looming in the back of your mind that's like, oh, it could be better. I could have this thing. I could be shooting at 400. I could be shooting at 600 yards, whatever. And so, like, it used to be that this was someone's first gun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was no other option out there that was like, oh, this is lightning in a bottle. Like this is going to be super perfect, whatever. It was like, no, you just got this, then you just went out and you just hunted, and you didn't really know what you were missing, maybe.
Sure.
And now it's just, anyway, I'm just saying it's kind of unfortunate for some firearms, we're talking just guns, like this, that they're always now trying to vie for position as just like an eclectic kind of like, oh yeah, maybe you'll take this out once in a while and you'll just feel like you're doing something that's vintage. Rather than actually like, oh no, this is a legit tool. People used to just take this as their daily driver and use it. They've kind of been shoved over into this. I think
that's the natural way of things, though.
Yeah, it's unfortunate though, because a lot of people, like, you come out with this and people look at it and their first thought is, well, I mean, yeah, it's not like a precision hunting rifle, you know, like it's just gonna be okay. Maybe I'll take it out like once a year for fun, and it's like, that is unfortunate. That steams my clams, so to speak, because I'm like, there's all these things that get passed up that are actually perfectly good at what they're supposed to do. Yeah, but because now everything is modern and technologically advanced and all that, it could be better. And so,
you know, it's funny you say that
stuff.
You say that, and you made a statement like you can't go back, right? Or there's tactical shotguns are coming back, and I know this is a very loose correlative, but tactical shotguns are coming back, and that brings me hope for guns like this. because of the utility, and because people will wake up and be like, why am I hunting deer in Wisconsin? We'll just
southwestern Wisconsin, where, you know,
I disagree.
No, hold on.
Or maybe we should even say northern Wisconsin. Let's go like,
why am I hunting deer with a gun like a chassis rifle that weighs 14 pounds and I have a $600 bipod on it? And I'm shooting my deer at 71 yards. I can't deny that it's not an effective tool because it works, right?
Oh, it'll zerp it just fine.
Mark Boardman.
I'll say in some cases, because that's the person, or that's the rifle that person has, because their first introduction to shooting was maybe some precision rifle stuff. Sorry.
Yeah, there you go.
I adjusted my mic earlier because I was sniffling. And now they're like, oh, I met somebody and I need to go hunt deer. Well, this is the rifle that I have. It's what I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I'm sure that exists. I'd argue that the later gentleman with the precision rifle setup is probably not the first.
Could be a lot of people shoot and don't hunt or get into hunting after getting into shooting.
I do see some people getting some pretty crazy rifles as their first guns.
I see what you're saying, though. Like, there are probably, because you're like, you whiz bang it up. Oh, I'm getting this. I got to be able to do this. What if this? What if that? I love the what ifs, by the way. And all of a sudden, you've got this crazy, 16, 18-pound chassis gun, and you're shooting deer at 10 yards.
Look back at a time, too, when this gun came out. No social media.
Yeah.
No internet. No internet.
You want to see the craziest print ad ever?
Yeah, I do.
It was for that gun.
Yeah?
I'm going to find it while you're talking.
Please do. So, no social media, no internet. You didn't know what if. The what if was like, what if we drive up to northern Wisconsin instead of like being here in southern Wisconsin? And even then, everyone thought more locally back then.
Oh, certainly.
You know what I mean? And if you did all of a sudden get rang up and somebody was like, hey, you want to go to Montana? You're like, well, yeah, I got a hunting gun. I don't really know anything about Montana, but I got a gun to shoot deer with, sure. And then you show up and you're like, I may be woefully undergunned here, but by golly, we're going to give it a go. And so I just think people people get plagued with wow.
Oh dear.
That's wild. That was wild enough to throw me completely off track with my thought. That's fantastic.
That is a print ad for this gun.
That is that is what some might say, a jarring image.
That is.
Is that Harambe?
It could be.
That is a gorilla, yes.
That is a gorilla. Yeah. So if you're wondering what stopped James in his tracks, if you Google the words Ruger 44 gorilla, you could read you see the print ad of the gentleman on a safari with a 44 carbine as the means of take for a lowland gorilla. So this was in.
And you read that ad and you were like, hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, though, that is a sign of the times. These are.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they give tags for those anymore.
Returning after a 23-day safari in what would have been Gabon, commissioned by Los Angeles County Museum to collect a rare lowland gorilla.
Oh, interesting.
It's rare.
Claims it was the toughest hunt after tracking succeeded in killing a 450 to 500 pound lone gorilla, estimated at, I believe it says 50 to 60 years old.
Incredible.
Wild.
Pretty wild.
That's amazing.
That's
In that Los
the
Angeles
museum. There ain't many of these left. We better go get one.
The Ruger 44 Magnum carbine is generally regarded as the world's finest firearm for hunting in thick cover.
By George.
It would
Curious.
shine there.
Curious, George.
They got him. We found him.
Yeah, so it's funny. No, I don't think you can shoot gorillas anymore. And
Yet.
not to poke fun, but golly, if it can kill one of those things, you'd think it'd be able to tip over a large black bear,
For sure.
you know, a large cervid of some kind, certainly a white-tailed deer,
Yeah.
a hog. Shooting hogs is still all the rage.
Sure
it'd be
is.
great for
Yeah,
that.
people are still bananas about that. Yeah, you think about what fun you could have with a 44 auto carbine.
I just think more people need to look at guns like this and be like, it's all I need.
Yeah,
I'm good.
100%.
I can get this and be good.
Yeah, I'm thinking of states
Be
like
great.
like Minnesota, Minnesota's in this somewhat waffling state between the allowance of straight wall cartridges in their quote slug zone. For as long as I can remember, and I've not lived in that state for a decade, even way back when, they're like, I think this is the year they're going to get it passed where we can shoot like 45 70s in the slug zone. Never happened. They keep talking about maybe going to just straight center fires like we do here in Wisconsin, except for some pretty select. There's like a Metro subunit that you can use a shotgun, I think, in a muzzleloader. That's your allowable means to take. But in where I'm from, like I'm thinking about a field that I have killed several deer on. This gun would have absolutely ruled the day as the premier choice, just because it's like 160 yards long, and it's perfect. I've got like a 100-yard wide window that I can operate on, and the deer move left or right on it, and fast follow-up shots and authoritative knockdown power.
Is this? I mean, this would be legal in a straight wall state.
It would,
Yes.
yeah. Well, yeah.
Or wait.
Yep.
Does it meet?
If your state has a length requirement, I think 44 mag is allowable in most, if not all. I'd have to look up on that. But yeah, I mean,
If it was, boy, that'd be a fun one to bring out.
that'd be the ticket.
Definitely.
Yeah. You'd have so much more control than you would with like a lever gun in 45-70 shooting full house loads. You'd be, pretty close to what you're going to be able to do with a 450 Bushmaster in an AR platform. And then you don't have to hunt with an AR platform rifle and its limitations and goofy geometry.
It's so much rather hunt with this.
Yeah, correct. I think, Ruger, please hear our cries. Bring back the carbine 44 mag.
Absolutely.
But then
Hopefully dropping.
It's going to take people buying it.
I know. I just
It's all these people like Mark. I stood on my soapbox and Mark, he welled me.
I'm just
After
saying.
that.
Like,
Because you know
I
what you would do,
know-
Mark? I think you'd get this, and then after a little bit, you couldn't help yourself. You'd put a 4-16 HS on it.
No, I would want to leave it. I would want to leave this one probably the way it is, actually.
Mark and I were shooting yesterday at the range, 2-10 Viper HD. He formally requested the next time we do it, it'd be a 3-15.
Not surprised. Not surprised.
Yeah, that's true. That happened. Because Ryan's always 2-10, 2-10.
It's like you have something against the 2-10.
Always
If
has.
I am,
And when I say that, I don't mean
if
a
I am
scope. I mean the
shooting for-
configuration.
like the utmost precision, I like to crank it up.
Right, to 10.
Okay, also, if you're going to crank something up, you at least need to turn it to 11.
We should actually make it a 2-11.
Yeah, I agree.
I always
Next.
loved that about the original 1-6, the illumination. This one goes to 11.
Doesn't it still goes to 11?
It still goes to 11.
Razor Gen 3,
Yeah.
it still goes to 11, yeah.
or whatever.
In fact, actually, that I think it was a very specific point within the product development meetings was
Turn it to 11.
And I think there actually was a conversation because I was there when we were talking about the Gen 3 razors, and it was like, okay, so the illumination, like, okay, like we got to whatever, it's going to have 10 illumination intensities. And somebody was like, no, it needs to have 11. And they were like, well, why? What can we just make setting 10 a little bit brighter? Or something? It's like, no. Mark, is there an instance when you would ever use a 2 to 10?
I mean, yeah, I just don't see why not to get a 3 to 15.
Would
you sacrifice one increase of power on the low end, which is, in my opinion, nearly imperceivable. Boom, you gain 5 on the top end.
Hey, Mark, you know what's not imperceivable? And I know you know what's not imperceivable because you talk about it more than I do. Size and weight.
That it's a point where I will make that concession.
All right.
The Ruger Model 44, everybody.
I'm glad you guys invited me.
I'm glad you came.
Yeah, man.
I was wondering,
It's been really
if the
nice.
podcast maybe just took a break for a little bit. I was like, my calendar is getting a little dusty.
You're a little dusty right now.
I am. I've been on the ground a lot today.
Yeah.
But, well, cool. Jim, well, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed this. Ryan, as per usual, it's always a pleasure. And it's a pleasure having this fine firearm with us today.
Yeah.
Oh, can I just add one thing I forgot to ask, though? So after I went on my diatribe about, like, accuracy and this and the other thing, I'm curious, did they shoot decent? 'Cause
Yeah.
Ruger, okay, they do.
They shoot phenomenally well.
Ruger has kind of had a tumultuous relationship with accuracy in semi-automatic firearms.
What do you mean by phenomenal, though?
So
Here he is.
Right.
Well, okay.
Mr. 3 to 15.
On the interweb, when I was watching, I wasn't seeing anything that I was seeing.
I thought it said on the internet it only is achievable of 1.5 MOA, and that's terrible.
I'm saying, yes, you're going to kill a deer at 100,
Yeah.
maybe 200 with it. I'm just saying it wasn't like, they weren't, it wasn't a ragged hole.
I can't give you what the accuracy standard is for a 44 carbine because I don't know that one necessarily exists. In my sample size of 1, when my dear friend Blaster acquired his 44 carbine, it was his birthday. We had the Blaster birthday bash, which we went out to his house. There were
No invite. Yeah.
no. This is before I knew you.
Okay.
There's great food.
He's always got that ace in the hole. Oh, it's before.
Yeah.
You went to a different school. And we had a plow disc set up in the field as a target. And we had an AK-74 that was there that day. We had a smattering of various bolt rifles and ARs and whatever calibers.
Literally the least interesting things there.
Yeah. I believe there was a Gibbs Rifle Company 4570 Enfield. Blaster will have to fact check me on that. But there was definitely a 44 carbine. And I believe it was Ultramax 240 grain soft points that were utilized. That plow disc, at I think it was 200 yards, we laid waste to with the carbine. It was so easy to shoot and so repeatable to hit that plow disc at that distance.
Was
That's
it?
what I'm talking about.
I would picture it being the one that people really gravitated towards.
Yeah, I think Blaster took it away because we exhausted his supply of 44 Magnum and in a hurry too. So they shoot very, very well. And there's some good write-ups on, if you want to read about people that have them, certainly there's a lot of, fanatics and collectors for this gun and several others like it. Like I lump this into the same category as a Ruger 1022 Magnum, although that gun was susceptible to some receiver cracking. But this and the 96 44 and the 77 44 and the 99 44, people that have them that tout their merit and talk about how actually wonderful they are to shoot and how wonderfully accurate they are. And especially if you're a hand loader, you can really squeeze a lot of juice out of them. But not all that aside, like it shot hilariously well. And for offhanding a plow disc at 200 yards, boom ting, boom ting, boom ting, as many times as you could until blaster took the gun away because we shot up all his 44 mag. Yeah, it's marvelous.
Which is what this gun is
Absolutely
for. I mean,
Shooting
fast,
shooting plow discs.
offhand, plow disking. Yes. No, but I'm saying the shots from, very close to approximately 200 yards, likely offhand.
So
I do. I've got one more thing.
So cool.
Are you aware of this? I saw it, and I'm like, what? This doesn't look like the other ones. It was the Ruger Finger Groove carbine 44 Magnum, and it had
On
like
the stock.
it had like a more elegant forend, and I don't think it had the barrel band. Maybe it did.
I don't know that I've ever seen one.
I'd have to go back and look, but I was like, it kind of reminded me of like the deluxe sporter model of the 1022 in a way.
Yeah. Not intimately familiar with it, no.
Interesting they went with a finger groove for their deluxe model instead of like checkering.
Yeah.
This one that I saw a picture of looked nice. I wanted to bring that up because I was like, oh, that's different.
We could
It was kind of the only one I saw.
Just so you're aware, we could do an entire secondary podcast, a totally different name, just on Ruger editions and rarities. I had a customer who was a Ruger single action collector.
Mm-hmm.
So Blackhawks and Vaqueros and single sixes and Bearcats. And then Super Blackhawks. And I don't know how many 4473s I did for him over my career. I'm talking hundreds of individual variants. And some guns were like one of 30.
They're just constantly tweaking stuff. Oh, make it like this for a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, even you go on their website now, and it's like you see the top 4 models that you can get as a regular person, and then there's like 27 distributor or exclusives or dealer exclusives down below in like different colors and different stainless this or whatever.
Yeah. And then as an aside from that, I had a customer that had me on a wild goose chase for a Ruger XGI, which is a gun that may or may not have ever existed. And I spent, I think, a couple of years following rabbit trails on Ruger XGIs. Never found one, never turned one up. Ruger Gold Label shotguns. I've been a part of the sale of 3. I don't know what the total number of gold labels that was ever produced. It was a very small amount. Very cool gun. We weren't ready. Ruger Mini 14s chambered in triple deuce. Factory guns. I've mentioned that one on the podcast before. I sold a pile of those. They were destined for the European market. These were overruns that never made it. Ruger number 1s in strange chamberings that were 1 of 10, 1 of 20, 1 of 50.
Oh, there's got to be a million of those.
Yep. Yeah, so they've always been known for that. These interesting, very limited editions.
It sounds like we could do infinite podcasts on obscure Ruger stuff.
100%. Absolutely could. The Ruger
Do you have anything obscure in Ruger?
Yeah. I'm sure there's
Call in today.
somebody out there listening to this that owns a Ruger Hawkeye pistol. And they're like, yeah, that thing's cool. I shoot prairie dogs with it. Killed a jackrabbit with it one time. Single shot revolver chambered in .256 Winchester.
God, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it,
Yeah.
everybody.
Rugers.
The Ruger
Food
Model
for thought.
44 and food for thought.
Other
Obscure-
Rugers.
Other Ruger stuff, obscure Ruger stuff, variants. Let us know. Let us know if you got something cool out there we should talk about.
Are you still hunting your Ruger 44 carbine?
And don't take anything I said earlier that you shouldn't, because I think you should. I get where people are coming from if they don't.
Right.
All right.
Okay, there you have it.
There you have it. Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you on the next one.
See ya.
Bye. There you have it, folks. Thank you very much for listening. As usual, give this video a like if you liked it, comment something below, and give us a subscribe to the Vortex Nation podcast channel. It would mean a lot to us. Also, why don't you give us a follow over on Instagram while you're at it, at Vortex Nation Podcast. We'd love to hear from you over there, and we'll keep you updated with all kinds of cool photos and videos from our adventures that we do here. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one. Thank you again. Happy hunting and shooting, everybody. Have a good one.